So what's up? How you doing today? We're going to take a look at some improv tactics Jerry did on El Paso. This is by no means a sound exactly like Jerry. This is just looking at his approaches, as I call them, improv tactics when it comes to improvising. And hopefully you can implement these into your own playing and sound like you. Let's listen to the first one, see if we can figure out what it is I'm focusing on, and then we'll break down what it is. So this is one that I may be saying a lot lately. I think the last one, I started off the same way because I think it's important to keep drilling this in. And a good way to start off is focusing on your rhythm. And in this case, he's using an improv tactic of a double time. So we were playing in 6/8 and the tune is in D, right? Very simple, kind of cowboy, country, Spanishy song, just D, G, A, D. So it's a 1-4-5-1 thing. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it, no big deal. But it's just revolving around the D major scale. And say we're way up here. I love when he does this really high stuff, this Spanishy kind of sound. So he's playing in double time. So the song is in 6/8, which means it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1. It's not actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not how you feel the beat. It's actually on 1 and 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which means it gives it basically a just different feel. It gives you a triplet feel of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that, with that in mind, we're just playing twice as fast. And you don't want to be counting this out and thinking about it. It's just a feel-based thing. And it already goes pretty quick. So it's really... And I was just doing the classic Jerry stuff. So we're looking at this D major, pattern right here. That would be just going down. If I was going, I think sometimes 4 notes. I was mixing it up, but... Something like that, or it could be even just a pentatonic thing. If you're playing the D major pentatonic, and this is by no means to just be like rapid fire, An example, I was doing it a lot just to stress the rhythm here, but it's a better thing to kind of weave into. But for practice sake, it is good to really drill it. I myself need to practice this stuff more. I'm just not the fastest player, so when I get to this is kind of like getting my threshold, and it gets a little sloppy. You just listen to my track soloed or slow it down, it would be like, ooh, it's pretty sloppy. But if I could find the time, more I'd be working on my timing. So that's the improv tactic number 1. Don't even worry about the notes. Just get that D major scale, D major pentatonic. I just said don't worry about the notes, but get whatever notes, simple stuff works for you, and focus then on the timing and getting that double time feel, because that's what he would do a lot throughout this tune. He's just playing just double time stuff. It's not like the only thing, but a lot of that. So it's like, to me, when I hear this, first thing that jumps out, it's like he's improvising around double time. That's his tactic. So let's go with that. Now, with that in mind, let's listen to number 2, see if we can figure out what's going on there. So this is now looking at the the kind of bridge or chorus section, whatever you want to call it, where it's now going to G, and to D, D7, and then it hangs on this D7 for a while. And I should also mention there's one measure in there where it's 9/8, and also in the verse part too, you're going along 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 2, 3. So that on the A, the 5 chord, it hangs on it for like an extra 3, an extra beat, however you want to think of it. So it's in 9/8 instead of 6/8. So it's a little unusual, but you just kind of just don't think about that stuff too much. Just kind of hear it and feel it out is the best approach. But here, yeah, there's another measure in that too. And we're going on G, D, D7. So what am I doing there? But when we get to that D7, it hangs out for a second, and then after a little time through it, I was up here. So this spot right here, whether D or your D7, right? I'm focused instead of more on just D major, more of a D mixolydian, which all that is playing a flat 7. So a flat 7 note right there. So you can think of it as D mixolydian, or I'm just throwing a flat 7, whatever, because I'm playing around the chord. And then also just a little bit like you could call it chromatic stuff too. I guess this improv tactic, I guess we could say, is kind of playing with the changes. So it's changing along to that D7, so rather than just continuing G major or D major pentatonic or something, we're changing with the changes. And kind of little chromatic stuff, climbing up there, hitting that flat 7, and then throwing in a minor third too. So it's also playing, it's kind of playing with the changes and playing outside of the changes a little bit too by throwing in this note here and this note here. But they're so quick in passing, it's not stressing it too much, and it's just dancing around. And that's kind of the sound too. So it's, even though it's playing outside of the kind of scale, right? To me, it still sounds actually kind of in, because that part, when they switch to the D7, they're hanging on it, it sounds a little bit tense, a little bit harsh, because there's also that one note in the chord there, that flat 7, which is a C, which is outside of the normal key of D major, which has a C sharp. So all of a sudden they're in there. So by throwing out a couple more notes, just real quick here, and this one here, that flat third, it just kind of like embellishes the out nature of it. So that makes sense. We're playing in by playing out what everybody else is doing, which is a little out, but just that one note, I don't know if that makes sense. But so that's our approach here, and I just finished it up by a little 6 there. So we're gonna do like a little more of that in a second. But the main idea is just play around. You don't have to do it all over the place. Just do it here. When I listen to Jerry, listen to a bunch of this, he does this a lot on the bridge. He just does this same actual kind of stuff. He kind of plays around with that area, maybe a little bit higher too, but right around here, he starts that same thing pretty often. So even though you may listen to him, it's like, oh, he's just playing around all the places, it's just different all the time. There are things in there that he would just do, like, oh, that kind of works, and just do it again, and that's natural. They call it style when you repeat stuff that you do. You don't want to be doing the different stuff all the time. The last thing I want you to do is like, okay, I know D major scale, or I'm going to try to get it all over the place, and just kind of noodle around and just kind of do whatever and just focus on you're playing D major scale. And that's not going to sound like Jerry. It's not going to sound, it could sound okay, I don't know, but it's not going to sound as musical, and it's not going to sound like you too. It's not going to sound like, I used to do that stuff a lot, and it just sounds like anybody old playing. But if you just zero in and keep repeating stuff, then you start to sound more like somebody, and hopefully sound like you, So with that in mind, let's check out the third one. This is a little bit of a different approach. Let's give it a listen, see if you can figure out what it is I'm stressing, and then we'll break down what is actually going on. So this is back to looking at the verse part, although you can do this over the bridge chorusy part as well. And it's a thing called playing in 6. One of my first dead videos I ever made a couple years ago was based around an old El Paso track I made, using it, looking at El Paso playing 6 and playing thirds. We're going to look at just the sixth. I think that's even more part of the sound. We'll keep it simple, not look at the thirds. But I'll put, if you do want to check out thirds, I'll put a link up here. I'll put it in the description down below. My original videos for 6th and 3rds if you want to look at more of that stuff later. And see one of my early videos. Hopefully things have gotten better. I don't know. But that's the whole thing. We're trying to get better, right? So, at everything we do. So, playing in 6th is, we're not going to beat our brains around what's going on, but it's basically just an interval, which is the distance between 2 notes, and we're looking at things called a 6th, and we're just going to leave it just at that and not get too bogged down into any theory and rattle our brains. But we're taking a note right here, a D, we're playing a 6th down below it, which is an F sharp, which is the 3rd, the major 3rd of D. So when you play your chord like this, it's just playing those 2 notes. It's a real nice sound because it gives you a lot of like separation between the notes, and it gives you this very open sound rather than playing 2 notes very close together like this. It's like, ooh, that's very close, so close, as close as you can get, without maybe bending it a little more and getting it just right there. And you can hear that tension back and forth. The notes, actually, the frequencies are jamming into each other, and you hear that back and forth warbling here. Big open space, nice sound. So that's, anyways, the general approach of the sound. So if we're playing over the D, you've got right here, perfect, right? Outlines the chord. When you get to the G, you can do this one right here. So that's from this A-shaped G chord. These 2 notes right here, so it's more 6, so the shape's different, but don't worry, still just playing 6. And that's the 5th in the major 3rd, so outlining of G, so outlining that. Now, when you're dealing with a 4-5 thing, which means in this case G to A, it's easy. Just do the same thing for the A, 2 frets higher. Or they even think about it, just that's it. Then you can bring it back there. You could do it in the same strings there, but we'll just keep it even easier. Just bring it back there. So you get those 3 shapes, 2 different shapes, but 3 spots, here, here, and here. And then boom, there you go. That's so much you can do with just that. So I started off simple in my example, playing through it. Sometimes not playing at the same time, just separate. You can do it with a pick. Use your pick and your finger, however you want to do it. Right? And then you can start expanding upon that. Maybe throwing this in between, that's a big, right? And then expanding by, you don't have to play them all at the same time, matching, lining up those chords. You want to start out getting familiar with that, but then you can, see, I was just, on the A, you don't have to only play that. You can play the G, You wouldn't just hang on just the G. Maybe it would sound a little weird, but like hit the A and then, and now you're getting very melodic, And then the other thing I was doing is on the D, you can go. So the same 2 these, but on these strings, and that's just going up the scale. And if you, especially right here, these are outside of the chord tones, but in the scale. And then this is back to the chord tones of a D. This is an A and an F sharp, so it's the 5th and the major 3rd. And I've made a bunch of videos now in 6, and this is, I guess, a partial video, and definitely not the last, because I love this playing so much. So many things I could talk about with this. But so you've got these right here, and then, so if you're just kind of resting on the D, you're going, add just a little pizzazz there, and again, keep it kind of developing. And then the last thing I did is, the last time through the verse, heading into the G part there, the bridge, because it switches, you're going D to a D7 right before, it kind of leads, there's a setup chord. You can get that by taking this one, just down 2 frets, and then going to this, which is the same thing here. So you could do it there, but I like to actually keep it on 1 string as much as I can. It kind of keeps the flow, kind of keeps the tone of the strings, because it sounds a little different here than it does there. Here, it's a little thicker sounding here. So, anyways, and that's just a good way to lead you into the next section. So hopefully that helps. You got, again, those shapes, little extra there. little bonus. So I don't know. Some people say a pro tip. I hate when people do that stuff. But anyways, then you got this going down there. That makes it sound like a D7. Helps change with the changes again, like I was talking about in the last kind of tactic. And this tactic, I guess you could say, is playing 6. I guess to play it simple, or to be playing kind of wider shapes in the more broad sense. I'm not sure I got a good name for that tactic, but it's an ongoing thing for me, evolving here. This concept of looking at these improv tactics or strategies, whatever you want to call them. And that's it with that part. And then to recap, the other part, remember that we're going, you can repeat the same thing or play around with that same idea like Jerry does. Don't worry about having to do different things all the time. And then we're throwing some extra notes. Got that flat 7. Make it a little more bluesy in that part by throwing in that minor third. You throw in some 6 there at the end too. And then the beginning thing is, remember, there's just the rhythm. It doesn't have to be that cascading and bending too. You're not even talk about that. We can, this is a big one to do some good little country bends and stuff too. Maybe I should have added that. I don't know. I should have done 4 or 5 of these, but I like to try to keep it simple, keep it down to 3. So if these are helpful to you and you want to try playing along with the track yourself, I got it right over here. I got those old videos if you want to check out the old Jeff Williams from two or so years ago when I first started doing these videos. Check them out. Put them in the links in the description down below, and I will hopefully see you in the next video or one of the past ones.